Hello everybody and welcome to TruthMeFree. My name is Nathan Wheeler and this is video number 8 of a series I've titled My Testimonial. If this happens to be the first video that you've watched or seen of the TruthMeFree channel, this is not the video you're going to want to start with. You're going to want to go and find video number 1 of the My Testimonial series. Watch every video in their totality all the way through. Don't jump around out of order. Don't fast forward or anything like that. It will save you a lot of time from having to go back and rewatch something, and me a lot of headache because there's a lot of comments that I get and a lot of questions that I get that are actually answered within the series if people would just watch the whole thing. I want to thank you, everybody who has watched the series, who has spent the time, and who have been patient with me, as it has taken me a long time to get to the next video and to get to the next video and to get to the next video and so on. For those of you who are watching this after the entire series is already made, that doesn't apply to you, but for those of you who have been along the ride of me making these, I thank you very much for your patience. So, all that said, now let's go ahead and jump on in and get to the part that you guys are really interested in. I have gotten the same question from many people, so I want to answer that as we start off. It has to deal with video number 7, part C, and that is that the love that I felt from Mr. L when I walked into Dan's mom's house, how is it different than the Holy Ghost, or how is it different than God's love, or is it God's love, or what is it exactly? For this, I want to compare it to when I saw the ceiling opened up and the image of Jesus comes down and holds me when I was 16 years old. That love was very different than the love that I felt in Dan's mom's house when Mr. L was there. The two differences of these two kinds of love, Mr. L's energy, love, was just that. It felt like electricity in the air. It gave literally a thickness to the air, kind of like humidity. When the air is humid, you can kind of put your hand through it and you can feel the thickness of it. So the air was not humid, but it was like that in the sense that you could feel a thickness to the air. Does this make sense? So it was very physical and more tangible. Like I said, it was almost like you could put it in a jar and you could take it home with you. It felt like that. So the best way I can describe Mr. L's love is I would call it energy. And this kind of love, I believe, is what most people feel when they experience high-level spiritual individuals who are like gurus, let's say. I believe that this is the reason why so many people on earth today say the term or the sentence that energy is love and love is energy and God is love and God is energy and so on and so forth. I do not agree with that statement. Here's the reason why. What I experienced when the ceiling opened up and Jesus came down and he hugged me was a completely different kind of love. In video number 7C, I mentioned that it was not the same kind of love with Mr. L as when a husband and wife, are looking at each other as they stand at the altar about to get married. It's not that I'm in love with you. I love you. I would give my life for you. There is a passion. There is a desire. It is focused. It is intimate. It is personal. Okay? That is the love I felt when the ceiling opened up and Jesus came down and hugged me. It was for me. The rest of the world did not exist to me. Nothing else in the universe existed to me except the fact that I was consumed by a fatherly love that was so personal and so intimate that it was like I felt like I was truly a son in being held in the arms of God, and that nothing could hurt me, nothing could possibly go wrong, and that I was truly accepted for everything that I was. Getting wound up just thinking about it again. It was so beautiful and so amazing. Notice that I didn't get welled up when I talked about the love in the air with Mr. L. But I can't help but get emotional when I talk about the love when the ceiling opened up and Jesus hugged me. If I had to choose between the two, there's no competition. I would absolutely choose the love where Jesus came down and hugged me. That's love. That is a gift from God. God, in my opinion, is more than love. And I'll re-talk about this in video number 10. when I actually go in a lot of detail about my other side experience. But I do not agree with the sentence that God is love and God is energy and energy is love and all that. I don't agree with that at all. Energy could be evaporated. It could be destroyed if God wanted to. He could snap his finger and boom, the universe ceased to exist. But God would still exist. If God took away the emotional and physical sensations of what we understand to be love, God would still be there. So God doesn't exist in love. And some people will argue and say, well, no, Nathan, that's not what I mean. I'm saying that love is directly from God, that love doesn't exist without God. Well, nothing exists without God. So there's that. But to say that love is God, or God is energy, or God is love, it's limiting God. God is more than both those things. So that's my personal take on it, and I hope that answers the question that many of you have asked. So I figured this would be a good start. Now that I've explained that, the next question is, where do we go from video number 7C? Where does one go after they have such an experience as that? Well, as I told you, me and Dan began a form of apprenticeship into becoming Naguals, into becoming Toltec shamans. And it was fun. It was awesome. It was some of the most amazing experiences and education of the human spirit, the human body, the psyche, the universe, and everything in the spirit realm that I could ever imagine having. But I got to a point where the next step was that me and Dan were going to take a trip down to Teotihuacan, the Pyramid Valley in Mexico, where they do the transformation, where they call it man becomes God. So listen to that whole term right there. Man becomes God. This is not the only religion or the only spiritual path in the world that believes in this process that man can become a god or a god. Throughout history, and ancient history especially, we hear of civilizations and societies where spiritual practices were done and believed in, where there was a deity figure on earth. We'll also get into that later, because that also causes a lot of people to be confused about who or what Yeshua was, or I'm sorry, Jesus was. If there was another deity-like figure, Buddha, Muhammad, or a pharaoh of Egypt or something like this, and they have the same story or the same this and that, well, how do I know to believe one or the other? I will get into that. But I don't want to jump ahead. I just want to let people know that I will touch upon that, since I have a feeling I'll get those questions. In video number 8 here, when me and Dan were told that we could not go down to Teotihuacan to finish the process and receive Man Becomes God course, I guess you could call it. It's really hard to describe what you would call it or how you speak about these things, but the only thing left for me to do was live my life. I had to take the knowledge that I had, and I had to manifest my reality. Now I have the tools, the knowledge, and the ability to manifest my own reality. Some of you will understand this if you've read the book The Secret, or you've heard of the movie or something like that, right? This was before The Secret ever came out. Now, as I say that, I'm going to explain to you in the rest of this video, or in the next 2/4 of this video, because the final fourth is going to be is where everything gets changed in the whole storyline of me. I'm going to kind of explain to you how I took this knowledge through my apprenticeship, through my studies of all the religions you've heard about, and many more which you didn't hear about, because like I said in previous videos, there's no reason for me to go down every single stinking rabbit hole with you. You guys get the idea, I'm sure. So how did I apply it? What did I do with my life? Well, I began to focus and put out there in the universe the things that I wanted to attract to myself. The image of me that I wanted the world to see. And I wanted to manifest my reality as Mr. L manifested the reality around me and Dan. He changed our reality to the absolute degree. There are techniques where you can do this on a mass scale. Some of you are aware of this. Some of you have seen videos on this kind of stuff, and subliminal messages and symbolism and imagery and things like this, and so on and so forth. That's a small part of it. That's not the umph degree of it. As of right now, I don't see anybody using it to the nth degree, but I believe in the future there will be people who will. That is part of what I have been referencing throughout the video so far as the magician's trick. I won't get to the magician's trick exactly what it is, how it will be done, and who's going to be doing it until probably video number 10. So you got to bear with me on that. And I'm saying all this because this all ties in with that knowledge that I was applying. And now I want to tell you, in my manifestation, I succeeded to a level that I could never even imagine for myself. I, as you know from the previous videos, wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be somebody to the world. So I went to junior college for 2 years, and during this time I already knew what I wanted to do, but I was going to junior college for an ex-girlfriend, my high school sweetheart. She thought it was important. I didn't really want to go to college. I was already in my career working on acting and so forth, so I was like, why do I need college? This doesn't help me. Nobody in Hollywood goes, and have you graduated from a university before I cast you? No. They look at if you can act, and then they cast you. So I did it simply to kind of try to win my girlfriend back. And I'm glad that she did, because it ended up helping me get to Hollywood, believe it or not. So here I am at a junior college in San Diego called Mesa College, and while I'm there, I'm taking all the theater programs. And I skip a class, which is Acting 101, because I had been acting since I was 8, and I had been privately mentored for 3 years prior to this by a professor from the Royal Academy of London. So I was Shakespeare trained and so forth. As you guys know, I was a big Shakespeare buff and all that jazz. So I felt like I don't want to do another beginning acting class and another American playwright, which I'm not really a fan of, and so on and so forth. So I waited for the last season, or the last semester, to do it. And as I did it, I wrote my own piece. And this was part of me projecting or manifesting my creation. I was being creative and I was creating. So hopefully you guys aren't lost on this. Just think about Mr. L and then imagine me using techniques to apply the baby steps of one day doing what he did, okay? That's what I'm about to tell you about. So I write this piece and I go up to the teacher and I say, look, I don't want to do any of this stuff. Here's the piece I want to do. I don't want to do memorization test. I don't want to do costume test. I don't want to do blocking test. These are all things that have to do with like how you get graded in acting classes. I just want to do the performance. I don't want anybody to see what we're doing. I want to surprise you. I don't want to tell you anything. I want to do a show. I want to produce an actual event. And the teacher's like, you want to risk your entire semester grade on one event? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, if you fail, you get an F. I was like, yeah, so she's like, who are you going to get in the class to roll the dice with you like that? And a guy who had seen me act before, stood up and said, I guess he was overhearing the conversation. He stood up in the theater and said, I'll do it with him. And the guy came down and I gave him the piece and me and him performed it. We ended up becoming best buds. Like, he is one of my greatest friends to this day still. Well, this guy, his name is Brent. And, hey Brent, I know you're probably watching. Brent and me worked on this piece for a very long time. We worked on it really, really hard, and it was really, really cool. It was called Mine, M-I-N-E, and it was basically the duality of being me, like how I wanted to live my life for God, but I also wanted to achieve success and be somebody to the world. And it was this duality of my two personalities, and it was me talking to myself in the mirror. So he was the guy in the mirror, and we were talking to each other. And when we performed it on performance day, the theater was actually full. When it was done, the audience was dead silent. And me and Brent basically looked at each other like, we totally just bombed. That whole thing just went over their head. They didn't get a lick of it. Well, one girl, I could see her just when you know you're on stage, all the lights are shining on you, you can't really see the audience. One girl looks around like, oh, that's it, it's done, and she starts clapping like crazy. And everybody looked at her like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, it's done? So everybody started clapping. We're like, wow, that was weird. Then the teacher jumped up on stage. She literally jumped up and came up on stage because she was sitting in the audience. And she stopped the audience from applauding. And she walked up to me and she goes, look, you're a good actor, don't get me wrong, and you did a great job directing this. But she said, you have to promise me you will never stop writing, because the world needs to hear more things like this. We need more writers like you. So I'm like, okay. So Brent looks at her and hears her say this because he's sitting on stage next to me, and he's like, you wrote this? And I'm like, yeah, dude, you've been doing this the whole time with me? You didn't know I wrote it? He goes, no, I thought, like, Tom Stoppard wrote it. If you guys don't know who Tom Stoppard is, he's the guy who wrote Shakespeare in Love, and one of my favorite pieces called Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. Great writer. It kind of had this flair to it. It wasn't Elizabethan by any means, but it had this flair to it. Anyways, so after the teacher tells us this, she turns around and she tells the audience that not only did I, produce it, direct it, and star in it, but that I wrote it. And when the people literally heard this, they gasped and they stood up, and we got a standing ovation. And so that was pretty cool. We went from thinking that we totally bombed it, went over their head, to getting a standing O. So that was really cool. Well, I guess this moved Brent so much, he faxed it to a friend of his that he grew up with, who was now a script reader for a very well-known, famous Hollywood producer. And a script reader is somebody who goes through all the scripts that come into the company, they read through them, and they kind of decide, well, this one's worth our time, that one's not worth our time, this one's worth our time, that one's not. So he sent him this scene that we had just done, this two-man play we had just done, and he told him about the audience's reaction. So the guy read it, and he totally loved it. And he told Brent to ask me if I had any movies that I had written like that writing style. So Brent came to me and he told me what he had done about faxing the scene to his buddy, and he hoped I didn't mind. I didn't mind, I didn't care. And the next thing I know, he was saying that this guy wants to make a movie that you write like this style if you can write a movie. Do you have one? And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? So here I was using the spiritual techniques of Toltec shamanism, of Mr. L, what some people now know as The Secret, and I was applying this. I was putting it out into the universe that I wanted to start my career in film. I wanted to start my real movie making career, my acting career. And here I was, I started with a baby thing in San Diego, California. I had nobody in the universe that I knew in Hollywood, and I just wrote a piece, I manifested, I created, and look, the universe was responding. Now Hollywood was calling me. And I said, yes, I have a movie, it's my true life story. I'm not going to give you guys a title or tell you anything about it, because I probably might make that movie one day, maybe, I don't know. And so, I told him the story. It took me 6 hours. I told him everything. Camera angle, shots, lighting, the effects, where somebody was standing, how the line was said. I basically told him the whole movie. It was in my head, complete. I just need to put it on paper. And he was like, you got it. This is a great movie. You got to tell this guy this stuff. So I'm going to have him call you. I'm like, okay. Well, he went home and he told what I told him over 6 hours. He told it to his buddy over like 30 minutes, like a Cliff Note version. The guy loved it. And he says, if he can write that movie with this writing style, the piece that you faxed me, we will make his movie this summer. And he can have lead roles if he's as good of an actor as you say he is, Brent. So Brent got back to me. He said, the guy's going to call you, and expect his call, and here's the name of the production company, here's the name of the producer, so on and so forth. On March 2nd at 3:15 p.m. I got the phone call that changed my life and started my career. They called me up and they talked to me, and the guy's name was Ed. And Ed called me and he said, hey, this is who I am, this is who I work for. And I said, yeah, Brent told me you'd be calling. And he says, I heard a little bit about the movie. And I said, well, look, before I write this thing, I want to tell it to you entirely. So on the phone, I had like a 4-hour conversation with him, and I kind of gave him a little bit of a shorter version, told him everything again. And he goes, you write that movie, you get me half that script in 2 months, we'll make the movie this summer, and you'll have the lead role. I'm telling you, I can make this happen. So I'm like, okay, cool. If you're being honest with me, man, you'll have half the script. You'll have the whole script in 2 months. I don't care, whatever you want. I sent him the entire script 2 weeks later, and it was a 6-hour movie. I'd never written a movie before. I didn't even know how. The format was completely off and everything. It was a total joke. But I sent it to them, and they loved it. So they asked me to come up and do storyboarding with them and to cut the movie in half. I told them that was half. In my mind, it was even longer, but I cut it in half, and that was 6 hours. So I feel like I should stop here, because if you guys feel like I'm just rambling, I'm not. This has a point. I'm not trying to impress you with what I'm telling you. It has a very, very important point. So bear with me on this, okay? It is part of the story, and it leads me to where I get to the point in my life where God goes, will you listen to me now? So I feel like I should just insert that right now, so I'll hopefully keep you guys' attention till the end of this video, which is going to be very long. I cannot cut this video up, though. because all this needs to be told in one chunk. So I now go to LA, and I'm supposed to storyboard with these guys and everything, but they have their own ideas of what they want to do with my script. They want to Hollywoodize it, is how we talk about it in the industry. They want to take out the good stuff and implement it with some cruddy, weak storyline stuff that they think helps sells. So I was like, no, I'm not doing that to my script. Well, they never made me sign a contract that gave them the rights of the script. So we worked on different drafts. I was up there and I was staying at Ed's. He allowed me to stay on his couch, and I was working on different drafts with him, and I was only there for like 2 days, 3 days, whatever. And on the third day, Ed goes, look, you really need to move up here because we can't really have you going back down to San Diego, and then we have to call you again, and then you come up. We already started talking to like Oprah Winfrey's company to get you on the television show, to get you interviewed as this 19-year-old kid who can write like Shakespeare, because I was 19 at this time. And they're like, we got to start doing press on you and all that stuff so that we can get the hype going. And I learned that was what they really cared about. They cared about the story of what was happening with me as the young man who wrote this movie that they thought was brilliant, but they weren't getting the story. And I could tell that they didn't even read the whole thing. They didn't even read every page. They kind of just skimmed it just to see if the style was there, to see if the depth was there, and it was, and that was enough for them. And then they cared more about the marketing side of it. That broke my heart, and I was just like, I can't give these guys my movie. So, but I put it out into the world that I did need to move to LA. Within 24 hours, for some freak reason, Ed's roommate decided to just leave and move out. So now I had a room to rent. I didn't have to look. I found a place to rent. So I moved in. I went back home. I was only supposed to be there for like 2 days to storyboard. I went back home, packed up all my stuff, and I moved to LA. At this time, I had a martial arts / acting school that I was teaching. It was how I made my money. I closed that down and moved to LA. My students understood because they realized that this was my dream, this was my opportunity, and so forth. So I did that, and now here I was manifesting my reality. Well, because this famous producer and Ed had started to put the word out about me, I started getting phone calls from very well-known people. Some of them were Oscar winners saying, hey, I got a copy of this script that you wrote, we have a mutual friend, or somebody gave it to me, it landed on my desk, and I wanted to talk to you about it. Okay. Well, this one particular gentleman, his name is Chris Butler. He is the son of Michael Butler, who's an Oscar-winning director of photography. His dad did Cannonball Run and stuff like that back in the 80s. His great-grandfather was director of photography for Charlie Chaplin, also an Oscar winner. His uncle was an Oscar-winning director of photography. His name was David Butler. Well, Chris asked me if I would meet with him to talk to him about possibly using him on the crew as a cameraman, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I went and I met with him, and I was on a movie set called If Tomorrow Never Comes, or something like that. I think it's If Tomorrow Never Comes. And the lead actor in the movie was a guy by the name of James Franco and another guy by the name of James Madio. And there was a third guy who was on set hanging out with James Madio by the name of Bryce Johnson, who was on a TV show at the time called Popular. He had just booked it. And James Franco had just booked a TV show called Freaks and Geeks. Some of you may have heard of James Franco. Again, I'm not name dropping, I'm trying to explain to you. Just bear with me, this all has a point. So here I was on this movie set with this royal Oscar-winning lineage guy, Chris Butler, and he wanted to be in my movie. He was calling me to want to work on my film. Then he told everybody on the set about me, about there's this guy coming, he's going to be sitting on the set, he's not like a producer or anything, but he's making another movie, and this is kind of my audition today to try to get to work on his movie, because his movie is this kind of movie, and it's about this thing, and it's written this style. And so everybody was like talking to me and stuff like that, and they were interested, and the makeup artist girl came to me, and she's like, hey, you know, Chris had told me that it looks like his uncle, David, wants to DP your movie because he read the script last night. And I was like, oh, really? Wow, that's awesome. I had no idea who David Butler was. David Butler, you know, had done movies like Jaws, Rockies, Apocalypse Now, maybe some movies you guys have heard of. Some pretty major stuff. Worked with James Cameron and Spielberg. Big time, right? So he wanted to now be the director of photography. So if you don't know, it goes, the producer's the money guy, controls it. Director is the guy who you know, controls the creativeness of what happens on set, kind of the visual of what everything looks like. But then there's the DP. The DP is the director of photography. He controls the camera lenses, the lightings. He makes sure that the clothes are the right color, the set's the right color. You know, he controls all the crew people so that the director can focus more on the actors and the emotions. And he wanted to DP my movie. So she tells me that because David is involved and because of the good things that Chris has said about the movie, she talked to her dad and told her dad about this, and her dad wants to be a camera operator on the film. And I was like, well, okay, yeah, you know, whose dad wouldn't? And she's like, well, you know, my dad is, I'm not going to say his name because I never worked with him, so I don't feel like, you know, I'm not going to tell people's names, guys, that I don't think that they wouldn't be comfortable with me sharing. So he was an Oscar-winning cameraman for Steven Spielberg, who worked together with David on Jaws. And after Jaws, they both split up and went their separate ways, so they wanted to work together again. And so it was a really cool thing because these two Oscar winners were going to have a reunion after something like 30 years on my film. So now I had two Oscar winners to lead my crew. I'm off to a good start. And remind you, I haven't signed a contract where I give over the rights to the movie to this producer guy who is a very well-known producer, who's the one who's been putting the word out about me and getting the buzz going about me around town, but he never made me sign the rights over. Well, we end up having conflicts because he wants to totally change the storyline, totally change the way it's told, and the whole thing so that it will match with something to do with Oprah Winfrey. I'm not going to get into it. So I'm just like, no, I'm not going to do that. Now, most people would be like, yes, I'll do whatever, just make me famous or just give me millions of dollars. And I'm like, that doesn't mean anything to me. I want to tell my story. I want to manifest my own reality. I want to create what I wanted to create. Again, applying what I had learned through Mr. L and through my teachings of all those practices prior to. So I'm like, no, that's not my vision, that doesn't fit, I'm going to cut it out. So I actually cut the producer out, and I went on my own, and with the help of David Butler and Chris Butler, I started my own production company. Now I'm 20 years old, just turned 20, and it's the summer of 2000, and I have my own production company working with Oscar winners. And now I have to find the money because I just cut out the dude who is the money guy, the big producer guy, so I have to find money somehow. Well, I've already manifested all these wonderful things. There's no reason why I can't manifest the money too. So I also need music and actors and so on and so forth. Very long story short, I feel like you guys can understand now. As I was putting it out into the universe that I wanted to create my career at a certain level, to achieve a certain level, it was happening. On a daily basis, if I thought of an actor, let's just say, I would be standing in line at a grocery store and the guy behind me would either be him or like be his father. And we would strike up conversation and he would talk to me and I'd talk to him, and boom, the next thing you know, I got his number and I'm talking to, the agents and the managers of the talent that I wanted. I'm thinking in my head, wow, it'd be perfect if I have this guy. This is the kind of stuff that The Secret tells you will happen, right? It got even crazier though. So I understood that the techniques that I had learned was now applying. I was reaching for the top and I was getting the top. So as you can imagine, here's the important part here, I was growing confident in my abilities. I was growing confident in my abilities to manifest my reality, to connect to the universe, the God, the energy, and to manifest. Does this make sense? Skipping to the end of this part of the story, I ended up getting Aftermath and Wu-Tang Clan to invite me into the studios and pitch me, their artists, to put their music in my movie. So there I am in I liked hip-hop at the time, I liked rap, especially Eminem. I never got to meet Eminem yet, but hopefully I will meet him one day. Hopefully he'll like these videos and hopefully he'll see them, and yeah, that'd be cool. I'd like to talk to you, buddy. You could do some seriously amazing things for the world, in my opinion. And then it had been about a year that we manifested all these things, all these letters of intent and contracts and so on and so forth, ready to go. Now I needed money. David does a budget breakdown for me, and I meet a guy who is the financier for all the major studios. When they're struggling, this is the guy they go to. He comes into my life and he says, if you can get these actors to sign on to your movie that you want, there was 5 actors in particular that were all Oscar winners, I think, except for one who's Oscar worthy, who now has one, whose names I will not use. He said, if you can get them to agree to do your film and they can do it, I will finance your movie for $42 million. And I was like, I'll get it, man. I'll get it. Because as you can imagine, a year goes by where every day I think of something or somebody and boom, they pop into my life. You can imagine that I'm confident of my ability now that I'm going to get these contracts done and signed, so this guy will finance me. I end up getting everything that I need to get this guy to finance it. I manifested. I totally got everything. You understand? I was a nobody, knew nobody in Hollywood. I had never even produced a piece before, and I was performing for a junior college. God bless junior colleges, but a junior college. It's not like NYU or USC or Juilliard. It was a junior college in San Diego. I performed a piece and it got me discovered by Hollywood. Like, that doesn't happen. Now here I am, a year and a half later, just about to turn 21, and I have Oscar winners all around me working on my project with me, and I have major record labels wanting to pitch me their talents to use in my music for my film, and I'm just, you can imagine my head is inflated the size of the outer space, and I'm thinking it's all me, I manifested it, I did it with the techniques that I've learned from ancient days and yada yada yada. I go to meet with the investor guy on a Monday. However, a mini major that he invested a lot of money in, like $1 billion literally, went bankrupt, and they filed their paperwork on a Saturday with their lawyer. The lawyer contacted this investor guy, and on Monday morning, about an hour before I was supposed to go to the meeting to meet with him to basically discuss the wire transfer into the bank account so we could shoot this incredible movie, incredible being the incredible talent that we got together on this project, he told me that he had lost $1 billion and that basically the finances he had to finance my film went with that bankruptcy. So now I had to go find other money. So I'm like, oh crap. Now I gotta find out what am I gonna do? What am I gonna tell everybody, right? I gotta come up with $42 million real fast because everybody knows that I had this investor and now they are expecting us to be in production here soon. So I'm stuck in a rock and a hard place. But I don't give up because it's all about obstacles and overcoming them if you hear anybody's success story, right? So I'm like, nah, it's okay. But I do need to find a job because I'm out of money and I need to find work. So I'm 21 years old now at this point, and I heard that there was a nightclub in Beverly Hills. So I went to this nightclub because the only thing I knew how to do was act and martial arts. So I went to the nightclub and said, hey man, you know, I used to be a martial arts instructor in San Diego, and I hear you guys might be looking for a doorman. And they said, actually, we just fired our doorman the night before, and so yes, we do need a doorman. That's so weird. We didn't even post an ad or anything. I'm like, yeah, manifest, what? So I end up getting hired on the spot. I start working for the club. Well, it comes to find out that the club was a nightclub, the only nightclub in Beverly Hills. It was called the Beverly Club. And I found out that it was owned by Deja Vu. If you guys don't know who Deja Vu is, because maybe you live in another part of the world, they are the largest nightclub chain in America, but they're adult nightclub chain. So it means like girls get undressed at these nightclubs. However, this was not one of those clubs. This was kind of like a Hooters, but Beverly Hills style Hooters. So the girls were in bikinis and they served filet mignon. Really weird, not a very good concept. It didn't work. But I had a job. Again though, I needed to make money. I needed to find a way to continue to find money people. So my thinking was that I had to move up in this nightclub. I had to become a manager. Well, I did. 3 weeks after I got hired, they made me a manager. I'm 21, barely legal enough to walk into the place, and because I was bored, they were only having 2 customers a day, I started patching up the holes in the wall, doing paint job, because there was nobody there, there was nothing to do. So I just started to fix the place up. And the guy liked me a lot, the manager, who's also the owner, liked me a lot, and he said, you know what, I want to make you manager, we need a manager so I don't have to be here all the time, because I have another club I have to go to. And I'm like, okay, cool. So he made me manager, got a pay raise, and now I can start kind of mingling a little bit more than just a doorman can. So as I do this, I start making some changes in the club and kind of change it more into like a nightclub rather than a bikini steakhouse. Really weird. So it's more of a nightclub and doing more events and dances and DJs and that kind of thing. Like really trying to turn it into a nightclub. Again, skipping ahead here, 3 months after that, he came to me, the owner of this club, came to me, dropped the keys in my hand and said, hey, I have to go run another club. It's in crisis. We need somebody to run this one. You're the only guy I trust. You're the GM. You start tomorrow. Yes or no? And I'm like, yes. I didn't know how to run a nightclub. I didn't know what I was doing. My family, you know, on my mom's side, they have like restaurants, hotels, and golf courses, so I knew a little bit about hospitality industry and stuff like that, but I didn't know what I was doing. But once again, I was manifesting in my mind, I need a better job, I need to make more money so I can mingle, I need to find more money people. Well, now here I am, I can say I'm the general manager of the only nightclub in Beverly Hills. I was manifesting good things for myself, and that's what was happening. Point is now all of a sudden I find another investor, because Ed went to school with a guy who had a venture capital firm, and Ed was the guy who was the script reader for the major producer who discovered me. Remember this? Well, Ed ended up coming to work for me as a bartender at the nightclub and became a producer on the movie. He left his job and now he's working for me. So he had this guy who had a VC firm, venture capital, so they raised money for businesses. Well, one of his clients' wives was very into philanthropy, and she donated something like $15 million a year for movies. And she knew the actors and the talent that we were going for, and I guess she had spoken to their agents or something along these lines, from what I understood way back when they told me this, that she got them to agree to take back in points. So instead of getting paid their full price up front, let's say $1 million, they would only get paid $100,000, but they would make a percentage of the profits that the movie made. So because of that, she brought the budget down to $25 million. So now she's interested in doing this, but she was going through chemotherapy and she didn't make it through her cancer, her chemo, and she passed away. So now here I am with a second investor that I thought was going to come through, save the day. Now we're going on, I'm going to be 22 at this time, and I lost a second investor. Now everybody's schedule is all jacked up. Everybody has different movies that they book 5 years into the future now. Their window that everybody could work together has changed. Now I have to go after new and different talent, but I wrote the roles for these talents, and my manifestation was crumbling apart. It was being ripped away at the seams. My whole universe was it just seemed like everything was coming to an end. At this time, I was also engaged to a beautiful young girl who I loved to death. She was amazing. But her family hated the fact that I brought her out of the middle of nowhere desert and moved her to LA, where I ran a nightclub in Beverly Hills that was owned by Deja Vu. They didn't like that very much. Rightfully so. They weren't religious people at all. They just basically were very clingy to their daughter and wanted her literally like to live with them forever. And she didn't want to do that. She wanted to live with me and start life with me, and she did, and that pissed them off. So that got all ugly. And that put a strain on our relationship and our marriage. We had to push it back and so on and so forth. And the next thing you know, the nightclub wins the court case against Beverly Hills, and they decide they want to sell. So who are they going to sell it to? Larry Flint. Yeah, Hustler magazine guy. So now the place is going to be called Larry Flint's Hustler Club. And I'm not going to be working for Larry Flint's Hustler Club, because the amount of headache I have with my fiance's family already working at a place called the Beverly Club that just happens to be owned by Deja Vu. Could you imagine what kind of headache I would go through if I was working in the general manager at the Hustler Club? So I literally carried Larry Flint down these stairs into this club, and I totally thought my claim to fame was going to be I was the guy who killed Larry Flint by dropping him down the stairs in his gold wheelchair. It was just crazy. So now I'm losing my job. I'm basically seeing my relationship with my fiance being totally ripped apart at the seams. I'm having the worst luck with investors, and now my cast and crew are all doing other jobs and none of them are coming together. So while this is happening, the two producers I brought on, Ed being one of them, decides to kind of make a move to try to take the rights from me for my script, for my movie, because they believe that I'm screwing up everything. And they believe that it's because I'm this 21-year-old kid, 22 at this time, that nobody wants to invest in the film project. But that's not it at all. We had people that wanted to invest, but there was things beyond anybody's control that happened. Bankruptcy of another company that the guy didn't manage, and somebody dying of cancer. That wasn't me. So, in order to save the script, save my relationship, and my sanity, I did what I would call bury the project. I took everything and I put it to a halt and a stop. I got some money from the club selling, and I didn't work for the Hustler Club. And I took that money and I moved out to the middle of nowhere desert of California called Temecula, California. This is where my fiance's family lived, and I moved out there in hopes that we would be able to salvage our relationship, let her build her relationship back with her parents and salvage that. And I even went into business with her dad, which was a web hosting company. So this was my attempt in order to try to save my relationship and save up some money, so make some good money so I could have a foundation, buy a home for me and my wife, and so on and so forth. Well, I get out to the desert and I'm completely distraught. I'm totally out of my element. LA, Hollywood was absolutely home for me. And now I'm not making movies. My dream is being flushed down the toilet. My girlfriend's telling me it was a pipe dream. Her parents are telling her it was a pipe dream, that I'm a loser, she needs to leave. I have no family around me, I have no friends around me, no support whatsoever. My fiance ends up moving back in with her parents. So now I'm living by myself in the middle of the desert, trying to do a business with her father who wants nothing to do with me, so that's not going very well. And I'm not doing the business, so I've lost all the money that I invested in and I'm done. My car breaks down, just everything is going to crap. And I'm thinking to myself, I didn't manifest this, I didn't do this. So finally I get to the point where I'm like, God, what are you doing? And I basically realized that that none of this makes any sense. I was applying the techniques that Mr. L had taught me, and I manifested the craziest Hollywood story that would have ever been. From what people told me, I would have been the first person to do what's called a 4-star debut, to produce, direct, write, and star in a major feature film, and have never done any one of those 4 of that caliber before. It was my debut for all 4 in major film. That was huge. That was something Charlie Chaplin never did. So I had this huge inflated ego based on the fact that I had seen this man turn into an eagle. I used these techniques that he used on a baby level to manifest my reality, and then it fell apart. And here I am in the middle of the desert, nowhere, starving, hungry, I can't find any work. I literally went to the only mall in the entire town, and I applied to every single location for every single kind of job known to man in this little town. And everybody told me I was overqualified because I had just come from being the general manager of a 4-star restaurant in Beverly Hills. And they're like, we can't give you a job making sub sandwiches because you're overqualified. You're more qualified than me and I'm the manager. You might take my job. I'm like, I'm not going to take your job. I want to eat. Can you just hire me? So as all this is going down, I throw in the towel. And I'm like, God, there's no way that you're real. There's no way that you are real. Because if you were real, you wouldn't allow really, really horrible people to have the most wonderful, amazing lives. And really good people like myself, putting myself in that category, like myself, have the most horrible things happen to me. Time and time again, I didn't lie to nobody, I didn't cheat or steal or rob or nothing. Why are all these horrible things happening to me? And I'm thinking to myself logically in my head, there is no way that if there was a God, that He would allow things to go down this way. So I logically reasoned that I made God up. That I had to believe in Him because when I was a kid I was so scared of death that I had to believe in God. So my psyche kicked a switch or something and then it went on, and it was like, you must believe in God because it's the only way you'll be able to handle reality and the fact that you're going to die. So this is what I believed. I talked myself into this. All the things I experienced, the pool, man turning into an eagle, ceiling opening up and Jesus hugging me, like the pyramid guys and the whatever else, all the crazy things I experienced, even more that you don't know about. I had to write it all off. I had to reason in my head that none of it happened. And I was like, no, there's no way that this happened. I believed that it happened just so I could maintain my sanity, which in reality was me losing my sanity, wasn't it? So it's not real. So I sat there and basically for about 3 minutes I was a full-fledged 100% atheist. 100%. I knew in my mind there was no way that God could exist because nothing in this world made sense if there was a God. So, I couldn't really get rid of the fact that I experienced all the things. I tried, but I really couldn't get rid of it. So the fact that I had experienced what I did gave this little tiny nugget in me that said, pray one more time. Just pray one more time. So I did. I was like, God, I'm done. I don't believe in you anymore. In fact, I don't believe that there's even anything there listening to me pray right now. I think just the air molecules are the only thing that are hearing my sound. I don't believe that you hear me because you don't exist. That's what I believe. So I'm saying this prayer just to humor myself, because if you are real, even though I don't believe you are, if you are real, you need to come to me. You need to reveal yourself to me, because I have searched and done everything. I have looked for you everywhere. I have practiced everything. And you abandon me, and you hate me, and you just like leave me to die out here in the middle of the desert by myself. You take my girlfriend away, you take my dad away, you take my friends away. And I didn't get into that, but it was just like, it was too much. It's just too much. I'll get into the friend thing, by the way. But I was like, it's just too much. Why are you doing this to me? You cannot possibly be real. And it was at this time that I heard the voice of God once again. And he said, Nathan, do you remember your promise to me? And I'm just like, yes. Because I knew exactly what he was talking about, because I thought about it every day since it happened. And that was, of course, the event in video number 1 when I was in church. The day that God made an oath with me. And I was like, yes, I remember my promise. And he asked me, he said, have you studied everything? Have you researched everything? Have you looked into everything that you wanted to look into? And I'm like, yes, I've looked into everything. I've studied everything. Yes. Now, part of that study is I had looked into things about Christianity. Like why the Bible wasn't true, when it was created, why it was created, the politics behind it, and so on and so forth. So in my mind, I had already studied Christianity to a degree. I never read the Bible, but I had, to this point, had researched the manipulation of the hypocrisy and the history of Christianity that they don't teach you at church. And so I was like, so I figured I knew it, is my point. I figured I knew it. So he says to me, God, he says, will you keep your promise? And I'm just like, I'm so frustrated because I know exactly where this is going. Do you guys get this? Like, I know you guys know where it's going. I knew where it was going. I was so frustrated. Because here I am, I'm fed up with God as it is, and here he is, he's about to ask me to do the one thing in this world I really don't want to do. And I'm like, yes, I will keep my promise to you. And he said, will you study my son? Will you study my son with the same intensity and fervency and drive and dedication and effort that you have given all the other spiritual paths and religions? The same. Will you give him the same? I paused and I hesitated and I really thought about it, because I know that if I said yes, I was going to go through with it. And I knew, because I had seen the level of diligent research, practice, and study I had given everything else, that before I said yes to this, I wanted to really see if I had it in me to do it. I was young at the time. By this time now, as this conversation with God is happening, I'm like 23. Yeah, about 23 at the time. And I'm just like, oh man, what have I got to lose? Alright, yes, I will keep my promise. He says, okay. That was it. His voice stopped. Nothing else came. He didn't tell me what to do, but I knew what to do. I knew I was supposed to learn about his son, which I understood was Jesus. Though he never said Jesus, he just said, will you learn about my son? And again, God gives understanding, so I knew who he meant. He meant the guy who died on the cross, the guy in the Bible. So I was like, I gotta read the Bible. Okay, great. So 2 weeks after this event happened, I'm walking in the mall in Temecula, California, the one mall that, like I told you, was there. And I was going back to the same places I had gone for job interviews. I was going back and doing follow-ups now. Hey, did any opportunities come up? Because I haven't had any meals for the last 2 days and I'm kind of starving, and I think I've lost about 10 pounds, and that's not cool. It would really be awesome if you let me just scrub some toilets and buy me a sandwich. Like, I was willing to do anything. Well, at this point, as I'm leaving the mall, all of a sudden God tells me to stop. So I just freeze. If you guys could imagine that, some guy's just like walking in the mall and all of a sudden he freezes. Like he got, hit with like a stun gun. So I'm like, because if God says freeze or stop, I'm like, something gonna fall on my head if I take another step. Like somebody gonna shoot a gun and I'm just gonna miss a bullet. Like I didn't know, so I just, okay, I'm frozen. What? So I'm sitting there frozen. I can only imagine how I looked at people. It's hilarious. I find this hilarious. So he goes, look to your left. So I looked to my left. Could you imagine seeing this? Some guy's just walking, freezes, and then like looks to his left like real creepy. That was me. So I looked to my left and he goes, see that girl? And I'm like, yeah, I see the girl. He goes, go sit down in front of her. There was a girl sitting on a couch in a coffee shop and she had a hoodie on, so I could tell she was a girl because of her small frame. She had her hoodie on and she had her back to me. And he says, go sit down in front of that girl. She's going to invite you to go to church with her Sunday night, and she's going to introduce you to the man who's going to teach you about my son. So I'm like, okay. My first thought in my head was Sunday night. Who goes to church on Sunday night? But whatever. So I go and I sit down in front of her, and it turns out she's totally my type. Like so cute, so hot, and I was like, oh, now you're just messing with me, because it's like so awkward. Here I am, this super cute girl sitting in front of me, and I'm like trying not to act like the weirdo who just got told to sit in front of her, so I'm just like looking at her like, hi, God told me to come talk to you. Like, and that doesn't work. So here I am, I'm like, and I'm like, I grabbed a flyer and started reading the flyer. I wasn't even reading the flyer. I was literally just looking at the page, waiting for her to start talking to me. So I was like looking at it, and then she goes, oh, you like that band? And then I decided to read it. I was like, oh, I didn't even know it was a band. I didn't even know what this is. She goes, oh, well, Wednesday nights here, they have bands that come, and that band's pretty good. It's one of my favorite bands. It's a Christian band. I was like, oh, cool. No, I didn't know that. I'm kind of new here to the area, and I didn't know that they had bands. I'll have to come check it out. She goes, yeah. So I put it down, and I'm like, okay, this is still awkward. I'm just waiting for her to ask me any moment now. And she goes, can I ask you a question? I was like, here it comes. And I go, yep. And she goes, do you have a relationship with God? And I'm like, love, if there is a God, wouldn't it be impossible for me not to have a relationship with him? She goes, no, I never really thought of it that way. And I'm like, yeah. And you're the Christian. She didn't say it yet, but I obviously already knew she was a Christian. So she goes, well, do you have a relationship with Jesus Christ? And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. And she's like, well, what do you believe? And I'm just like, I'm a Toltec shaman, New Age Buddhist. She's like, huh? I'm like, yeah. It's complicated. She's like, well, what do you believe? And I was like, well, I believe that God is in everything, that God is energy, that God is love, and that man can become God. Yeah. And she just looked at me again like, it doesn't really make any sense. How do you believe that? And I'm like, it's a long story. She goes, well, what does Buddhism believe? You believe that Buddha is God? And I'm like, no, Buddha wasn't God. Buddha said he wasn't God. She goes, oh. I was like, yeah. I believe that man can become God. That Buddha taught enlightenment, which is to tap into the all-knowing knowledge of God. And she's like, you think you can know everything that God knows? And I was just like, eventually, sure, why not? I mean, why not? Bible says man is made in God's image, right? Why not? So she's just kind of like stuck on these things. Like she doesn't really understand what I'm saying or why I believe what I believe. Like I wouldn't either, I guess. I was confused myself, right? So she then ends up telling me what she believes. She tells me that she believes in the Bible, and she believes that Jesus died on the cross for her sins, and that he is the Son of God, and that he rose 3 days later, and that because of this, that she's saved. And she's like, are you a sinner? And I'm like, yep. She's like, you are? And I'm like, yeah. So I was like, I've told lies. I've had sex with my girlfriend out of marriage. I'm sure, the Bible says that that's not a good job, but I was engaged to the girl, but whatever, And I was just like, yeah, but I don't believe in the Bible or whatever. And I said, and she starts telling me why she does believe in it and so forth. And I go, so you believe that the Bible is the truth, the end-all, be-all truth? She goes, yes. And I was like, have you read the Dharma? She's like, what's the Dharma? I was like, it's the Buddhist Bible. She goes, no. I was like, oh, well, have you read the Quran? She's like, no. I like, oh. You do know that sounds really rude, right? That you're saying that your one true religion is true, that your Bible is true, but you've never read any of the other religions, and you say that theirs is a lie. And I was like, have you read your Bible? She's like, well, I'm actually attending school right now, Calvary Bible College, right down the street. And I was like, oh, really? Awesome. Yeah. She's like, yeah, it's in Marietta. It's right down the street. I was like, okay, cool. Well, that's good. And I was just like, I see in your eyes, and this is important. I really want to share this with everybody who watches these videos. This girl's name was Kelly. And God used Kelly with me in a major way. I could see in Kelly's eyes that there was zero doubt in her mind that Jesus was her Savior and the Son of God, and that the Bible was the truth. She wasn't a weird, googly-woogly Christian. She was totally hip, totally cool, totally beautiful, you know, just your normal everyday person. But she had this look in her eyes I didn't see with anybody ever in my life. And it was a confidence that she knew the truth in Jesus. And I was just like, I started to cry as I looked at her. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. I looked at her and I said, I can never have what I see in you right now. And she's like, why not? And I said, because I know too much. I've experienced too much. I've experienced things that aren't in your Bible. I know about your Bible. I know when it was written. I know who wrote it. I know who put it together. I was like, I know why they made it, the politics behind it. I was like, I can never believe that your Bible that you believe in is the truth. And I've read the other books. I don't believe that they're the truth either. But I don't think the Bible's the truth either, because I know too much about it. Isn't this funny? I've never read the Bible. Here I am mad at her that she doesn't believe that the other two religions that I had mentioned in this conversation, she said they weren't the truth because she had never read them. And here I was, I'd never read the Bible, and I'm saying that I could never believe it to be true because I knew too much about it. How many people on earth are doing that right now? How many people on earth think that way about the Bible right now? They've done some research on it from other people who have studied it or researched it or the history of it, so they think they know about it. They've never read it themselves, but they've sat in a church once or twice before and heard somebody preach about it, and whatever was preached didn't really vibe with them, so they didn't like it, and they don't believe that that was true. So here I was, confident as she was confident that she knew the truth. I was just as equally confident that I could never have that level of confidence that she had. And it almost brought tears to my eyes because I thought, wow, how wonderful it must be to have that kind of faith. And she goes, look, Nathan, I don't know about Buddhism, and I don't know about the shaman thing, and I don't know about Muslims and Qurans, and I don't know about all that. But my friend does. Will you come with me to church on Sunday night and meet him? I'd like to introduce you to him. And I was like, yeah, I'll come. She's like, you will? And I'm like, yeah. God told me to come sit down in front of you because you were going to invite me to go to church with you on Sunday night because you had a guy who was going to teach me about God. She's like, God told you this. And I was like, yeah. You're the Christian. You don't believe that God talks to people? She's like, no, okay, great. So she wrote down her name, her number, and the address of the school. And this was before cell phones, by the way, everybody. This was before everybody had GPS phones and you could just Google and get there, okay? So she gives me this address, she writes it down, I go home, and, Sunday comes, so I don't know what day it was. It was like a Tuesday when I met with her, because it must have been the next night, right? Wednesday was when the band came. So I'm waiting for Sunday to come, and I put the number right on my dresser. My dresser was always clean. I never put anything on my dresser. I put the number right on my dresser next to a candle that I had and so forth. Come Sunday, the paper was missing. I couldn't find the paper anywhere. Totally just part of God's test. Totally just part of God's test. So here I am, no car because my engine seized and I didn't have the money to fix it. I live in the middle of the desert, 11 miles away from her school. I'd never been to the school before. I had driven by it once the entire time I lived out in this place. And I had to hope to goodness that I could find it in my noggin. So I went on to the computer. And I went on to, I think it was Yahoo, did have some kind of map system at the time. Before that, there was something called the Thomas Guide. Most people, unless you lived back then, you have no idea what Thomas Guide is. So I went on and I map quested on Yahoo, I believe it was, not Google yet. Yahoo, the directions. 11 miles I lived away, and there was no roads that led from my house to this Calvary Bible College, okay? I had to take the interstate. So I got dressed in my Sunday best at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in 110 degree weather. I'm wearing an all black suit. right? Because, you know, gotta look good, it's gotta be black. So I'm wearing an all black suit and I start walking. I get to the freeway, which is 3 miles from my house. I'm on the freeway, I'm walking maybe 7 miles total. I feel like I'm wearing down holes into my shoes. And some guy pulls over. He sees I'm just like drenched somehow. He just sees I'm sweating, 110 degrees outside. Pulls over, he's like, man, where are you going? You're dressed in a suit, you're looking nice, and I don't see a car on the road. What are you doing? And I'm like, well, my car broke down, and I promised somebody that I would go to church. And he's like, you going to church? I'm like, yeah, place called Calvary Bible College. You know it? And he goes, oh yeah, I know it. I'll take you. Hop on in. He's like, you're going to church dressed in a suit? He's like, you're not going to kill me, right? And I'm like, nope, I'm not going to kill you. So he lets me in his car, and he drives me out of, whatever, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, you know, 4 miles, whatever, to the rest of the way. So carried me the rest of the way. So I find that, I'm just going to throw this in, I find that very symbolic. You know, like God, you go halfway, God meets you halfway or more, you know, and then He takes you to where you need to go. So I arrived to this Calvary Bible College. I'm by far the oldest dude there, because remember, I looked like I was 30 when I'm 19. Now I look like I'm like 32, 33. I'm 23, 24 at the time. And I show up, and I'm kind of just hanging out because I got there a little early. So had this guy not picked me up, I was going to be super late. So another grace by God. So I arrive just a little bit early, maybe half an hour, and I'm waiting for people to show up, and I'm sitting over like by this bush kind of hiding because I just didn't want to deal with anybody. And I see this girl Kelly, the one who I met at the coffee shop. She walks in with a group of friends into the chapel. And I walk up to her, and I'm like, hey Kelly, and she's, by the time I get to her, because I had to prep myself, I spent like 5 minutes kind of being like, okay Nate, you know, you're going to deal with these Christians, they're going to come at you, they're going to witness to you, they're going to ask you all sorts of questions, you can handle this, you can do this. So I gave myself about 5 minutes. I go inside the chapel and I see her, and she's surrounded by like 30 people. I'm like, dang, this must be a popular girl. She was, but that's not why she was surrounded by people. She was surrounded by people because she was telling everybody that they should expect to see a guy she witnessed to at the mall, who is a Buddhist shaman, and that God had told him, that everything you guys have heard. So she has a crowd around her, literally a minimum of like 30 people standing around her, just all like looking at her like, oh, that's so cool. And then I was like, hey Kelly, I'm like 5, 6 feet behind her, hey Kelly. She turns around and she goes, that's him, that's the Buddhist guy. And I was just like, whoa. Literally everybody turned and like pinned me into a corner. It wasn't that they were being rude or mean, they were just so excited, these young 18 to 20-year-old young Christian kids who were just on fire for God, like so excited to meet this Buddhist guy who, you know, I guess they'd never met a Buddhist white guy before, something, or a Buddhist period, I don't know. They were just totally enthralled with the Buddhist shamanistic thing. So they all surround me. I had literally like 30 to 50 people, like in a half circle standing around me, crowding me. And I was just like, oh my goodness. And they were just shooting darts at me like, what do you believe? You believe the Dharma of the Bible? What do you know about the Bible? What do you believe about Jesus? What do you believe with the cross? And I'm like, ah! I'm losing my mind! And I heard God go, don't tell them anything. You don't say a word right now. You are not here to educate them about anything that you've ever experienced or know. And I'm like, okay, so I'm just going to be rude and I can't answer them? Because He didn't say don't tell them this but not this. He just said don't tell them anything. So I'm like, I don't know what to tell you people. So I'm like, I believe that man can become God. That's what I believe. They're like, what do you believe, Buddha is a god? And I'm like, no, Buddha's not a god. He said he was not a god. No. They're like, have you read the Dharma? And I was like, yes. Have you read the Quran? Yes. Have you read the Bible? No. Why not? I didn't want to read it. So I'm sitting there like trying not to answer their questions, and I notice that behind the crowd is one guy standing off with his arms folded, just kind of looking at me like, And I'm like, that's the guy. That's the guy I came here to meet. Because in this situation, I'd be that guy. So he has to be the guy who I'm here to meet. Now before I go any further on the story of what's about to happen with the guy who's standing off to the side, I need to do a little bit of backtracking because just the flow of things, okay? The movie that I wrote when I was 19 that you guys have heard about, it's based on my true life story, but I wrote it into the future. I predicted my own future. Part of that future was one of my friends by the name of Ryan was going to die when he was 24 years old by mixing pills and alcohol. This is Ryan. Now, Ryan was 20 years old when I wrote the piece. So this kind of prophecy, if you will, took place 4 years into the future. Well, when Ryan turned 24, me and him were very close friends. He was one of the few people in my life who supported me in my dreams and didn't think I was crazy, and still believed in me even though the rug kept getting pulled out from underneath me. And he even got into some arguments with some of my friends saying, you guys make fun of Nathan, you think he's full of crap, but I've seen him, I've gone to LA and visited him, and I've seen his world, and I know he's telling the truth, and I believe in him. And one day, you guys are going to realize that he's not lying to you. And he really went to bat for me, and I will never forget him for that. He means a lot to me, and he means a lot to everybody who ever knew him. He's one of those guys who everybody loved. Literally everybody loved Ryan. But in this movie that I wrote, in the very first draft, I wrote that at 24 years old, I have a reunion with a girl who was my high school sweetheart in the story. And at the reunion of me meeting her, bumping into her, she tells me the bad news that recently in the storyline, that Ryan, and I used real names in this movie, my real name, Ryan's real name, that he mixes pills and alcohol and dies. Well, I took that original script to Ryan and I said, listen to me, I don't want this to happen. And I'm telling you, because he knew that I had prophesied about 6 other people's death up to this point that I'm sharing the script with him. He knew about my dad, he knew about my grandfather and a couple of others. And I said, you know, I don't want this to happen to you. And so I'm going to change the script. Because remember, this is at the time that I was practicing manifestation. This is at the time after Mr. L, and I believed that maybe the reason why I had the gift of seeing people die was so that I could do something about it, that I could do something to change it, or I could do something to help them. So I said, I'm going to rewrite it. I'm going to put it in ink and paper. I'm going to etch it in stone, and we're not going to have this happen. Do you understand? And he was all about it. He's like, absolutely, my man. From that time to the time that Ryan did die, he was in and out of rehab maybe 3-4 times. Really expensive rehabs too, like $40,000 rehabs. His mom spent tons of money on him for rehab, and it just never worked. It never stuck. 3 months, 4 months, I think, before Ryan passed away, his brother mixed pills and alcohol and died while he was homeless living in a van. And that guy was a professional surfer at the age of 17. He could get any girl he wanted. He was a cool kid in school. I mean, he had the world at his fingertips. But now at like 26, when he passed away or whatever it was, he was doing drugs and meth or crack or something like this, like really heavy stuff, bad stuff. And I guess he mixed pills and alcohol and he choked on his vomit in his sleep. Ryan called me one night, and me and my fiance at the time were getting in an argument. And I didn't answer the phone because I knew what he was calling me about. He was depressed about his brother, he was depressed about life, and he was probably debating going back and drinking and having drugs. And I was literally in a fight with my fiance at that time, that little phone call. So he left a message, and I saved it to this day. I have a videotape of it because I shot it with a video camera so that even if I lost the phone, I would still have the recording. And from what I understand, it was the last time he made a phone call. And he was so depressed, he didn't have anybody to talk to. I was the guy that he had talked to, that he had been consoling and that he had been confiding in. And he ended up drinking, mixing pills and alcohol, and he died in his sleep at the age of 24. This is the picture that my buddy Joey gave me, which is Ryan's senior headshot. Joey knew how close me and Ryan were. He knew about the script. Joey was also another close good friend of mine, helped me out in my life when I was down and out. Joey's a great guy, and he got me this of Ryan. And the reason why I bring that up is because some of you have asked about Dan. Some of you have said, hey, are you and Dan still friends? Whatever happened with Dan? I never really did drugs. I never drank alcohol. And and my friends did. We grew up in a very nice neighborhood, loving families. I mean, sometimes it wasn't always love. Ryan got beat by his dad, but you know, it was still a good community. I mean, even those of us who had it bad didn't have it that bad, is what I'm saying. And these kids were throwing their lives away. All my friends were throwing their lives away. They were more interested in fighting pit bulls and barbecues and surfing and drugs and being cool and whatever else, that they weren't doing anything with their lives. And I never related that to that, since I wanted to do something with my life since I was 8 years old. At Ryan's little funeral that all of us got together and had for him, all my friends were drunk and high. All of them, except for me. And they were lifting up their 40s and going to Ryan, you know, in memory, and they would chug and they would toast and they would chug and light up a bong load and get ripped and high and pop pills. And I'm like, the very thing that ruined this poor kid's life. He had the world at his fingertips. His mom was extremely wealthy, had the most successful advertising agency on the West Coast, and now her 2 sons, only children, are both dead because of drugs, because of abuse of substances. And here you guys are honoring the dead guy with the very thing that killed him. It didn't make sense to me. And I snapped. So I stood up at the funeral gathering at my buddy's house. He was just at his apartment. But I stood up and I let him have it. I let all my friends have it, and I told them what I thought of them, and I told them how stupid I thought they were being, and I left. And from that day forth, basically none of my friends ever reached out to me again. And I don't think it was just that, though. They didn't reach out to me prior to that. I was pretty fed up with the fact that they judged me and said I was full of crap about the movie I had been making in Hollywood and so forth. Some of you had asked me about what happened with Dan. I don't know. But I know that I snapped at Ryan's funeral, and I know that I don't agree with having drugs and drinking to honor somebody who died from drugs and drinking. And I know that that didn't go over too well. So I never spoke to Dan really ever again. I did try to mend some things with him around the age of 26, I think it was. I saw him like 3 times at his house. I went to his house, his barbecues, and tried to like have a relationship with him. We did have a little bit of a heart-to-heart where he told me some things and confided in me about some things that he was frustrated with me about. And he said a lot of it had to do with jealousy, because he went to 4 years of university, and by the time he was graduating, I was running a nightclub in Beverly Hills making a lot of cash. And he just thought that that was unfair and didn't make sense. And then, you know, the movie business and the fiance thing and all that jazz. So it came down to that he just wasn't happy, that he thought things were going easy for me. Nothing was easy for me. So, it still isn't. But that was a major event. Now, I say that and get off topic because let's get back to where I am now in the story, which is that I'm at this Calvary Bible College. It's night. I'm about to go into a church service. I'm getting drilled by 30 to 50 young teenage, early 20 people, and there's one guy standing off the side not saying anything. The music starts in the church, and everybody is kind of starts to fizzle away and leave me alone, and Kelly stays by my side, you know, just saying like, she's just got this look on her face like, I'm so happy you're here, and I'm just like, I'm scared to be here, and I didn't know if they were going to lynch me or what. So cut my brain apart and take pieces of wondering why I was a shaman. Who knew? Just funny little thoughts I was having. Funny, meant to be funny. So they go inside the sanctuary area, and Kelly stays by, and the guy who's off in the corner drifts towards me. And as he drifts towards me, Kelly goes, Nathan, I'd like you to meet my friend. It was the guy who she wanted me to meet. She goes, I'd like you to meet Dan. The guy's name was Dan. So I looked up at the sky, and I'm just like, you, he did it. By him bringing me to a guy by the name of Dan, it only confirmed everything to me, that this guy was my new spiritual buddy. He was my new spiritual partner, and that we were going to learn a lot of things together, or I was going to learn from him, because God told me don't tell him anything. So this time I was going to learn from this guy. Well, we went into the sanctuary, and Dan kind of gave me this real like, I don't trust you, I don't really know if I like you yet kind of feel. And I kind of respected him for that. he wasn't just jumping in, he wasn't witnessing to me, nothing like that. He was asking me questions. Some of them I felt was a little like kind of offensive, just in the sense of like, so you believe Buddha's a god? Like, it was almost kind of a little pre-judgmental. And but I knew that he was only trying to find things out about me, so he would kind of be able to gauge about what to tell me. And supposedly according to Kelly, Dan knew a lot about Buddhism and shamanism and the Quran. So I was like, okay, cool. You know, me and this guy will probably get along. He was also a little bit older than the other kids. I think he was like 22, where most of the kids were 18 to 20. So he was a little bit older, so he had kind of a little bit more of a mature vibe to him, which I also felt a little bit more comfortable with. So we go in the sanctuary, and Kelly sits on the side, Dan sits in between me and her, and we're sitting there, and the church service starts. And there was 450 kids that filled this auditorium, this sanctuary, and the band on the stage rocked. Like, they were really good. I mean, this was like I was at a concert, and there was lights, and the music was good. They dimmed the lights, and like the music was fantastic and high energy and super positive. I was like, man, I can actually hear myself like listening to this music. It's not all like, Jesus loves me, yes I know. Like, it wasn't any of that kind of stuff. And I was like, this is church? I totally thought God was losing the war. I'm like, where have all these Christian people been hiding? Because where I grew up, that is not going on. The only time you go to church in the town I grew up is when somebody dies, or somebody gets married, or Easter and Christmas. Those are the only 4 times a year that anybody ever goes to church that I knew. So to see 450 kids in a room wearing normal clothes, I was the only one in a suit, where somebody would have told me that. You don't wear suits to church anymore. I was the only one in a suit, and these kids are just like rocking. They're like, I love Jesus. I'm like, what's happening? This is crazy. And I'm like, this is blowing my mind. I'm like, God's not dead. God didn't lose the war. These kids love God. Like, they're crazy in love with God. This is amazing. And Dan was just pretty chill. He's just like, yes, I love God. You know, it's pretty cool. I was like, all right. So then, after the service, me and Dan start vibing and talking, and we get along really well. And he says, I'd like to meet with you, and I'd like to read the Bible with you. And he asked me some questions, and I told him some questions. And I didn't tell him anything that I didn't think God didn't want me to tell him. What I told him was this. I said, man, I want to believe what I see in you and Kelly's eyes, this confidence, because he had it too. It was this just confidence of knowing that they were in the truth. And I was like, I want what you have, but I could never have it. And he says, why not? Why can't you have it? And I told him the same thing I told Kelly. I was like, man, I just know too much. I'm like, Christians are hypocrites, and they lie, and they cheat, and they steal, and then they go and they say, oh, but I'm saved because Jesus loves me. Well, what? So the Buddhist monk who won't hurt a fly, who won't eat a single piece of meat because he believes and loves the animals so much, who would never hurt or lie or cheat or steal anybody, or the monk that takes a vow of silence, who never says a word of harmful things to anybody ever, and he just meditates and plows the field and grows and sows and does whatever a monk does that doesn't talk, that guy's going to hell because he doesn't know Jesus? I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. That's why I can never believe in your Bible. And he says, you know what? I know just the guy who you relate to. I was like, really, who? And he goes, Paul. I was like, you know, I think I've heard something about this Paul guy. I think I remember there's something about him that I did like. And he goes, yeah. He's like, and I know just the book that we're going to read. And I was like, great, what book? And he goes, Romans. I was like, I like the title already. All right, let's do it. So he says, all right, let's meet twice a week, and we'll meet for a few hours, and we'll read the book of Romans together. I'm like, cool, man, awesome. Well, he doesn't call me. He doesn't schedule it, so once again, God is testing me, is how I feel, because he asked me, will you put in the same energy and effort that you put in everything else? He wasn't going to make it come to me. He was going to make me go to it, like I did everything else. So I'm like, I called Dan, I scheduled the meetings, I scheduled the things. He was also in college, he was busy with his classes, I understand. But I had to go out of my way, and I didn't have a car, so he actually came, because my car had a seized engine. So Dan came and picked me up, which was really cool. And it was good for us because we got to talk in the car like just as friends and become friends, rather than just like, okay, here's the Bible, let's study. So the fact that I didn't have a car actually kind of worked out in the car ride part. I could tell it also kind of frustrated him a little bit to always have to come pick me up, because I did live like 20 minutes away. So anyways, we met at the school, at the campus, which was gorgeous, and you just definitely feel the Spirit of God there. It's a beautiful place. If you ever get to go, I don't think they do tours or anything like that, but I got to go because Dan invited me. But yeah, we would meet and we would sit next to these springs. They have these natural hot springs at the college campus. We'd sit next to these hot springs and we would read Romans. And everything that came out of Paul's mouth, well, on the paper, I loved. I was like, I love this Paul guy. This Romans book is awesome. Everything he's saying, I'm vibing with him. And there were times where like he would say something that was very new agey or very shamanistic, and I'm like, you see right here, Christians have no idea what he's talking about. And then Dan would ask, well, what do you mean? How do Christians not know? I'm like, well, he says, you know, this, or he says that, and I'm like, the Christians think it means this, but New Age people understand that it means this, because in ancient societies it would mean da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and I go off on this whole tangent. And then I realized, I'm not supposed to tell you that. Shoot! So I would shut my mouth, and he'd just look at me like, can we get back to reading? And I'm like, yeah, never mind. Forget what I just said. Get back to reading. So we would get back to reading, and I would learn, and I would study. 6 weeks, me and Dan met about 2 times a week, and we went over the book of Romans, and he didn't just read it with me. Like, we read very slowly. He spent a lot of time explaining backstory to me and history with me and so on and so forth. And on the 6th week, I visited the church for the 6th time. And as I'm sitting there, you know, we'd finished the book that day, the book of Romans that day. And I'm sitting there, and I'm really heavy in thought. I just really feel like God is with me at this moment. And the music is playing, and the music comes to an end, and all of a sudden, as the music ends, the pastor stands up and he says, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whomever shall believe in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. Or something, it's different versions, but that's the gist of it. If you believe in his Son, you shall have everlasting life, right? So you shan't perish, right? John 3:16. John 3:16 is the exact same thing that the pastor said in video number 1, if you remember, when I fell to the ground when I was 4. But this time, it meant to me what it's supposed to mean to people when they hear it. So here I was, hearing John 3:16 again. I had come full circle. And as I heard it this time, I role-played in my head every faith system and concept and belief I had ever heard or gone through or practiced. Singular God, monotheistic belief systems, all believe the same thing. There's one God that created all things, created man to have relationship with him, is omnipresent and divine, and gave man free will. Now, 5th thing, God is love. Okay, so all 5 of these things are all believed by all monotheistic belief systems that I had come across at this point. And I played in my head, and I understood something. Like, it was almost like lightning struck again, the light bulb went on. Ding! Remember that? Ding! So, I realized that if there is a God, that these 5 principles would have to be true. And if they are true, then that means that God would allow mankind to create his own religions, his own faith system, his own gods, make himself a God, because that's part of his free will. God wants us to choose what we're going to do, whether that's to walk away from him or walk towards him. Because if we choose to walk towards him and we're robots, that doesn't mean anything. But if we have the ability to walk away and create ourselves as our own God and become our own gods, as shamanism is, man becomes God, but we choose not to, and we choose to walk towards God, that's a statement. That's something. That has value to it. Robots and puppets have no value in their actions, because it's not authentic. It's not them. That's not real relationship. So I understood that God would allow mankind to create false religions and spirituality and gods. But he's omnipresent and divine. So in his divinity, if you will, his sovereignty is probably the more correct word. In his sovereignty, he would make sure that no matter what faith system that mankind would create, that those who weren't seeking religion or power or spiritual prowess, but were seeking him, would find him. Because he would leave a special nugget, a special value to his truth, his spiritual path than the ones that man created. So in other words, it would stand out above the rest. The one that he created for mankind to know, that he made to bring to him, would stand out above all the rest for those who were looking for him, not from a side effect or a byproduct of religion or faith or spiritual prowess. Does this make sense? This was my thought. It was all in the flash of an eye, a blink of an eye, right? But I understood this. And as I did, I played back every religion and every faith in my head. And I said, if God did allow this to go down, as I just explained, he would make sure that his religion, his spiritual path, had the greatest act of love in it. He would make sure that there was no other faith system that had a deity or a spiritual leading figure that acted in more love than his, since he is the God of love. And since love is what would bring us to God. And I realized right then and there that there is no act in any guru or deity or being that is historically recorded that we know of that is greater than a guy by the name of, most commonly known as, Jesus Christ, who was a sinless person, a person born of the Spirit of God, who never sinned and willingly, wantingly died on the cross for the very same people who were murdering him, mocking him, beating him to the point where he could not be seen or recognized by his family and friends. There is no greater act of love that he would burn in hell and absorb the sins of the very people who were mocking him and killing him, and do that for all the people of the world. There's no greater act of love than that. And that's when the light bulb went on, and I said, that's why you wanted me to study your son. Because you wanted me to see John 3:16. You wanted me to see that you loved me so much, that you do love me, that you are real, that you wanted me to understand that you did give your son for me to be saved. And that's when the next light bulb went on. Oh wow, I am saved. I need a Savior because I am a sinner. I know sin because I know sin. Sin is real. How else would I be able to acknowledge it if it wasn't real? I can acknowledge that I sin. I feel it when I sin. I know when I sin. Therefore, I know that the black void of nothingness, the promise of sin is death. And I've seen death. I've seen it. And so, you don't have to convince me of this fact. And then, I realized I do need a Savior. And I realized right then and there that this guy who is the Son of God died on the cross so that I could be saved. And I turned to my left and I looked at Dan and I said, I get it. And he goes, what do you get? Like you already knew. And I said, Jesus died on the cross for my sins. I mean, when you guys really realize that, when you realize the level of love, it's the feeling I had when he came down and he hugged me. It's when you really put it and make it personal, that he died on the cross for you because he loved you that much, that he could have been king of the world, he could have been ruler of the universe, he could have been a rich man, he could have had all the things that we all desire, but instead, he had one pair of clothing, he walked around in sandals, he didn't live in a time with Bentleys and mansions and cell phones and showers. He chose a time when it was rough to live, really rough to live, and he died on the cross. He got the crud kicked out of him so that we would believe, so that we could be saved. I lost it. I started crying. I was so grateful, and I fell in love with God at that moment. And I knew that this was the beginning of my journey with God. I knew that this was the beginning of me coming into truth with God. Not the end, this was the beginning. Because I still had a problem with Christians. I still had a problem with Christianity. Because even in the book of Romans that I read, it had a problem with Christ followers. And Paul had a problem with the Jews who believed they knew God and were saved by God, and I could relate to that. And so I knew I had to do the only thing that was reasonable to do and of the appropriate response to what had been done for me on the cross. I had to read the Bible. So I'd like to show you guys one more thing before this video ends. This right here is something I call my switchblade. This little guy right here is a tiny little Bible. As you can see, it's pretty small. And this is the Bible that Dan gave me when we were reading Romans. When we finished the book of Romans, he handed me this Bible and he said, "This is yours. Do you have one?" I said, "I do not." And he handed it to me. And unfortunately, this isn't the actual Bible. I ended up giving that one to somebody else, but I bought multiple of these for myself. You guys can't probably tell, but this thing is pretty tattered and beat up. It gets a lot of use, I guess you could say. But I call it my switchblade. And this is the one I always bring with me when I go to church, so I don't have a big old Bible necessarily hanging around when I do go to church. This is the first Bible I began to read. If you guys look at that, how small that is. But I began to read the Bible, and I read it from the first page to the last. And I read the New Testament multiple times while I was reading the entirety of the Bible. And I was still meeting and hanging out with Dan and Kelly, and I was not allowed to go to church at the Calvary Bible College anymore. It became awkward because I was going so much and I was there so much, and I just wanted more of God. So I was hanging out with Dan and Kelly as much as I could, as much as they would allow me. I was on campus too much because I wasn't a student. We got to the point where I was like, man, I just want to enroll in the school just so I can be here and learn about God and have fellowship. But I didn't have the money to go to the school. And like I said, I was basically homeless. I did end up becoming homeless. Dan did. He pitched in, got me some meals sometimes and stuff like that. He was really cool about that. But he suggested I go to another church, which was ran by a very young pastor. I think the guy was like 26 years old or something like that, maybe 30 years old. And it was called The Edge, if I remember correctly. And he's like, man, you got to go to The Edge. If I didn't go to church here at the school campus, that's where I would go. And I was like, okay, cool, man, thanks, I appreciate you letting me know. And I did end up getting my car fixed, I believe, or somebody let me use a car. Anyway, somehow I ended up getting there to The Edge, and I made friends there. And one of the guys who I met there, his name was Chad. And I couldn't really spend a lot of time with Dan anymore because of school, and he ended up getting a girlfriend, and they were working on their engagement and stuff like that. So it was just the time wasn't there, and I was seeking fellowship, and I was still seeking to learn about the Bible. And this guy named Chad ended up becoming my new spiritual buddy. And he did the sound and video for the Edge church. And from here, at this point, I ended up realizing that not only did I need to read the Bible, but I needed to find out what was the disconnect. Why was what I was perceiving about Christians so different than what I had already begun to read in the Bible? Where did things go wrong? What happened where what used to be taught by the apostles in the Bible was not being done and believed in and practiced by today's followers of the Bible? How is this happening? Why is this happening? When did this change happen? And that is video number 9, where I went to about 3 churches a week for about 2 years, studying every denomination, going more than once, learning the people, becoming part of the cultures as much as I could. So as you've heard me do with all the different religions I could find, I did the exact same thing with all the denominations I could find of Christianity and Catholicism and so forth. So that's video number 9. And then in video number 10, it will end with me telling you my whole experience and everything I understood when I went to the other side and my coming back and so forth. So thank you guys very much for watching. This is video number 8. I hope you guys get one thing before I turn off the video here, the camera here. The manifestation that you guys heard about in the beginning, I manifested a reality that is so unbelievable that I was going to make history. But the truth is that yes, we can manifest our reality to a degree. But no matter how powerful you are, even if you can turn yourself into an eagle or a mold or a wolf or an Indian and make the whole world vanish all around you, or even other people, God is real. God has a personality, and He has His own course and desire for your life. And you can manifest the things you want. You can make the best of what you have. But if that's not what God wants for you, He will change it. And that is the point of why I'm telling you about all the things before video 8. The conclusion I came to about everything spiritual powers and man becomes God and God is love and energy and the out-of-body experiences and the astral projections and all the psychic stuff and all that, everything. Here's the point of it all. For me, so what? So what? It has no value to me. You can turn yourself into an eagle all day long. You can manifest your Bentleys and your Mercedes and your Rolls Royces and your helicopters on your yachts all you want. But every single person, rich, poor, or spiritually powerful, will die. They will all die. It is appointed that every single person die once. Yes, there are 2 people in the Bible who did not die, but they will. And I'll get to that in video number 10 as well. But it is important for people to understand. Many people said, well, Nathan, how come you didn't say during video number 7, that this shouldn't be done or this shouldn't be done? Because if I tell people not to do what I needed to do myself to come to know it to be true, I may be taking away from them the thing that will give them the confidence that I now have. I needed to experience everything you guys have heard up to this point in order for me to know that what comes from here on out is absolutely the truth. I needed to know that all the crazy things that I saw and witnessed, experienced, were real, so that I would know what is really real, what is really important. I don't know if that makes sense, but you can have all the astral projections you want. You can do all the out-of-body experiences. You can hold your yoga poses and your Tai Chi Chuang and Qigong energy buildups, and you can do all this stuff that you want to manifest and even make yourself the most powerful person in the world. It's of no concern to me anymore. It doesn't matter anything to me anymore. If the moment that you have God, the moment that you experience God, as I had experienced God, and had the revelations of Him dying on the cross for me, the real revelation of Him dying on the cross for me, what is turning into an eagle? Why do I want to spend time using my energy to turn myself into an eagle, which, is just a magic trick? It's a magic trick. It's nothing else. What is it going to do? Is it going to save anybody's soul? Is it going to save anybody's life? No. Is it going to confuse a lot of people? Maybe. Is it really cool? Could I make a quick buck off of it? Probably. But what is it going to accomplish? In the end of all things, when I am dead, what is it going to mean? Nothing. It means nothing. And from Paul, who is my favorite apostle, all is vanity. So I hope you guys get that is the reason why I could not say anything until video number 8, because I had to take you through the process that I went through to get to the revelation I went through, so you guys could totally understand that I had a full experience of all supernatural, spiritual, out-of-body. I've experienced it on the utmost level, and I have had it multiple accounts. And I can tell you, my response to it all is, so what? It's all vanity. That's the truth. More truth to come, because the Bible says, ye shall know the truth, and it shall set you free. And I can tell you, that is 100% the truth. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for being with me on this extremely long video. Be blessed. Thank you. God bless. I'm Nathan Wheeler.